All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July TNT webinar from Atlanta Tribune. I am your host, Brent Leary, and we have a really cool hour ahead of you because we're going to be talking about how you can create an online publication, not just a blog. And we have the perfect person to really talk us through this and share some of their experiences and tips and tricks. It is my friend Anita Campbell. And let me make sure I got this popped up so that everybody can see things. And so before I turn things over to Anita, and Anita, just in case you don't know, she is the publisher of a site called Small Business Trends. It's smallbiztrends.com. And if you have been looking for small business advice, and haven't come across this site, I'm glad that you're at least learning about it now because I don't know, roughly 800,000 people visited a month. Small business people looking for great information on how they can move their business forward. And so Anita and Small Biz Trends has been one of the foremost portals of information around small business for wow, over a decade, and she has other sites that are all speaking to the small business, helping them get more information, helping them learn more about running a business, getting up and running with it, technology. But she's done it with the online publication that smallbiztrends.com turned out to be, and then a host of other properties she has. So before we turn it over to her and hear how you can potentially do some of the same things, I wanted to just give a little house cleaning or housekeeping. And as usual, we use, if you want to follow, I try to tweet, and we have some folks tweeting some of the great information that comes out of these kind of webinar presentations. And if you want to follow those, you can just do hashtag Tribune TNT, and we will try to make sure the conversation is running and help kind of pepper in some of the great information that's coming out. And if you're on Facebook, we try to do the same thing. And so you can follow some of the stuff on Facebook. If you go to that long kind of word down there, facebook.com/technology for business sake. So if you're a Facebook person, you can kind of look over there. If you're a Twitter person, just follow the hashtag Tribune TNT. And before I kind of turn things over to Anita, one other thing I wanted to make sure people are aware of, the Atlanta Tribune has their Moving Your Business Forward event coming up in July 29th. It's going to be held over at the Home Depot Arena, or I guess the Home Depot headquarters. It has a really nice facility for events, and so it'll be held over there. If you want to get more information about the event, just go to atlantatribune.com and see all the kind of the agenda and some of the great sessions that will be taking place on July 29th. If you have some time, if you have at least a morning open, I think you need to check it out. It's a lot of great information, and once again, Home Depot headquarters, great facility, great event. Learn more about it, go to atlantatribune.com. So, as I mentioned, this is a real privilege to have my friend Anita come and share some of the great wealth of knowledge, her experiences, and some of her trips and tricks and tips. I kind of get a little tongue tied on that one. Around building an effective, not just a blog, but an online publication, going beyond the blog and really thinking about your web property as an online publication. So, without a further ado, Anita, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, Brent. Hi, everyone. It's a real delight to be with you here.
All right, and I am actually in the getting ready to turn over the reins to you, so you should be seeing a little sign there asking you to take over.
Okay, very good. And I hope that you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can. I think we can. Did we get that? Let me see. Make sure. I want to make sure you got it.
Okay. Well, it says people can see your screen.
Yep. Now we got it. Yep.
Okay, terrific, terrific. All right. Well, good. Well, this is exciting. I've got a lot to share. And I'm hoping everybody has questions. And I'm hoping you, Brent, have questions because you're always great with those incisive questions. And I think we'll get a lot more out of this if we can just do a back and forth.
Absolutely. And what I will ask, if people do have questions that, as Anita goes through things, go ahead and start putting them in the question box there in the go to webinar on the right. And as you put them in, and when I get an opportunity, I will ask away on your behalf any questions you may have for Anita. So, and I will have some too, Anita. So this is great.
Okay, good. All right. Shall I just jump in and tell my story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it will be 11 years in October of 2014 since we got started. We started in October of 2003, and at that time, it was a little blog on a relatively new blogging software at the time. It may have been around for a couple of years, called blogger.com. And of course, blogger.com is still around. At the time, it was the state of the art. And I was trying to put out a newsletter, an email newsletter, as a consultant. I'd left the corporate world. I'd been a corporate attorney, of all things, and then I moved over to the business side and got involved in e-commerce and got involved in marketing. And so I left the corporate world, started doing a little consulting for some friends to help them with business plans. See, all my entrepreneur friends wanted to start businesses, and so I was helping them. Decided, well, what the heck, I should be putting out an email newsletter and marketing myself as a consultant. But it turned out that putting articles, informational articles online was not very easy in 2003. And I don't know how many of you have ever used Dreamweaver software. Back then, Dreamweaver was really the bee's knees, and I know it's still around. But I was using it. I was not very good at it, and it would take me forever to get these articles online. And so a friend said, why don't you go over and check out this blogging software, blogger.com. So that's how I got started. I really just wanted to put up some newsletter articles online. I needed an easy way to publish. I set up a blog, and I just was amazed at how easy it was to publish. You know, I was used to publishing on Word and PowerPoint and tools like that. Well, here you could actually go online and do something, you know, almost as simple. It was a little more complicated, but not that much more complicated. It was certainly easier to use for me than to use an actual software program like Dreamweaver. So fast forward to today. We moved that blog from Blogger a number of years ago, and we moved it to WordPress. WordPress was just starting to get started in the mid-2000s, and of course, WordPress has since become the state of the art when it comes to blogging, at least in the opinion of many, and it's certainly used by many, many, many websites. I've lost count how many, but last time I had checked, it was something like 60 million websites had used it. I'm sure that number is much higher now.
Yeah, it's higher, and people will probably be amazed at the big companies that are using a platform like WordPress that's available to smallest entrepreneurs as well.
Indeed, and that's how you can tell something is world class when the large players all the way down to the solo entrepreneurs and the hobbyists and individual people use it. You know, it is, you know, it's a product that you know, has taken the market by storm. So we use it. Of course, today what we have found becoming a publisher is that we can't use WordPress off the shelf. We have to customize it, and so we have customized it quite a bit. Now that was a long time coming. I mean, this has been years that we have developed this, because when you think about it, we are a business today. We are a business that actually publishes content. We think of what we do as being an online magazine, because that's really the closest thing to what we do. We are publishing content for a certain audience. We are advertiser and sponsor supported, meaning that mainly we get paid from advertisers and sponsors who pay to reach the audience that we have. And what that does is it enables us to put out content without charging the readers for that content, for the most part. And so we update our content regularly, and we like to think of ourselves as, a modern 21st century type of publication, because we're not like an old-fashioned magazine in some senses. Although we do follow a lot of the tried and true publishing, let's say, techniques that traditional publishers have used. And the reason we follow them is because they're good business practice. They're tried and true. They work. But we also like to choose content that is kind of up to the minute sort of content. We're looking for the kind of things people like to read. People like to read snackable content. They like fun content. They want their information mixed with fun. They want it easy to scan and read online. They're looking for the kind of information they can use and also have fun with and be entertained with. And I think that just says a lot about audiences in general today. And I don't know if you agree with that, Brent, or not, or what your views are on that.
I definitely agree, and I like the term snackable content because it's you don't know if you want to eat a lot of it, but if it's something that makes you curious, you're going to take a little piece of it, and if you like it, you're going to snack on it some more. So I think that's really a good way to look at it. Make the content something that is appealing, makes it something that people are at least curious about, and once they get a piece of it, hopefully they'll want more of it.
Exactly. Well, let me give you a little bit of information about the site in an organized way. So we've got a few slides here. We'll flip through some of these, and I'll go pretty quickly through them just to tell you a little bit more about what we're about. And then we'll dig in maybe into some of the tools we use and give you a peek behind the scenes as to how we do things. And I'll explain some of how we've married that traditional publishing and that kind of expertise with the way we present things for the 21st century audience today. So, as you can see on this slide in front of you, you're seeing what our website looks like. We've moved to a very image-heavy type of presentation on the website because, as you know today, visuals are in. Everybody wants stuff to look at. Visual is part of the content, and you really have to think of it that way. It used to be that text was the main way of presenting content in either print form or even online. Now it's a lot of visuals, it's images, it's video, of course. Video is huge. And so you have to think about that, and you have to think about the two of those things when you present content. So it's not just the story you write, but it's the image that goes along with that story. It's the video that you also present with the story, either to accompany the story, to provide background, or maybe the video is the main part of the story and the text merely provides some explanation to go along with that.
Quickly, Anita, are you still on slide one, or did you move to a new slide? Because right now, what we're seeing, at least what I'm seeing, is slide one.
Yeah, just slide one, so let me move on here.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, our mutual friend Martin Lindeskog asked, "Is podcasting snackable?" Yeah, I would say yes, Martin.
Yes, podcasting is definitely snackable, Martin. So, all right, so here's a snapshot of what we are. We're a news and information site. So we present news about small business items, and we do a lot of original news content. I mean, we have actual professional journalists. We have an editor, Sean Hessinger, many of you may know. Sean, if you don't know, used to be a newspaper editor. He was a newspaper editor with a couple of newspapers, and so he brings a lot of skill and expertise to the table, and he's really a rock behind what we do. We focus entirely on small business. That's our audience, and we define small business. Everybody defines small business differently. We don't certainly limit our audience. We have articles that we know are read by medium-sized and large corporations and even by consumers, but mainly we go for the under 100 employee small business. And of course, that's the vast majority of the 28 million small businesses in the United States anyways. But, we're really targeting, a fairly small organization. And we also have content that's of interest to solo entrepreneurs. And we're giving a wide variety of information. The one thing that ties it together is small businesses would be interested in it. It's got to have some kind of a small business angle. And we add to that, this idea that it really has to be practical. So the way we've evolved how we write about things and how we present information is we try to have lessons and information in it. We do features about individual businesses, but when we do features about individual businesses, we try to focus on, what other business owners can learn from that. If there's a tidbit in there, one little nugget of information, that's great. And of course, we do special events too. We do a lot of Twitter chats, we do webinars, we do Google Hangouts, and we run our awards programs. We have a couple of awards. One of them going on right now is the Small Business Influencer Awards. We're taking nominations right now. And we just finished up the Small Business Book Awards. And our tagline, of course, is Small Business Success Delivered Daily, meaning that that's what we're about. We're trying to give you information and content that, helps you truly deliver success. Before we, actually get into what it takes to run it, I want to go out of order just for a moment, and I want to show you a little of our traffic, some of our statistics. How's that, Brent?
That sounds great.
Okay. So, we get about 1 million visitors a month across our different sites, and a little under 1.5 million page views. We have a pretty good time on site of, almost 6 minutes. And we get half of our visits are new visitors, people who might come from a search engine, from a social media link, who read about us in a newsletter or whatever. But other ones are those who are, coming back and reading the site. We let our RSS feed of all of our content go out full feed, and we know that we have between 5,000 and 10,000 readers a day who read us just through the email of the feed that they get. And so on a low day, 5,000 are just reading it through the email. They don't even visit the site. And it could be upwards of 10,000 that are actually reading it.
That's a really interesting, I think, an important piece there. You said 5,000 people on certain days are reading your content through email, don't even get to the site.
Yes, and that some people would look at that and say, "Oh, that's terrible. You're missing out on all those site visitors." And we've thought about it and realized that we just want people to read the content wherever they read it. It's important to be portable today. And there are a lot of people who read the content because it's embedded on various sites. It gets picked up, and shared and curated. And so a lot of people are reading it, and we look at, are they being influenced by it? It's not so much about, insisting that everybody visit the site or view it, through their mobile device, view our site per se, but just that they're getting access to the content.
Yeah, quick question. Another one from our buddy Martin. It's a good question. He said, how much has traffic and visits increased over the years? And he says, any milestones you want to mention? And I think he's right. This one around, you're getting people are spending 6 minutes on average on the site. That's pretty incredible. What would be kind of a typical amount of time and the average person spends on the average site? And just so people have a little bit of perspective around some of these numbers.
Well, I think people tend to, we talked about snackable content, so especially social media visitors tend to come quickly and leave quickly. And if they're short articles, I don't know how long it takes you to read like a 300 or 400 word article, but for most people that's going to be fairly fast. And so probably 2 minutes, people are going to come, read a very short article and leave. one of the things we do, Brent, that I think helps that time on site a lot, and not everyone agrees with it, but that's okay, is we do a lot of long form content. We tend to have longer content. And even, for example, the interviews series that you host, that we put the transcripts on Small Business Trends, most of those transcripts are, they're well over 1,000 words. And,
Yep.
people, they can listen to the audio and they can read the transcript. And the people who read that are very interested in that content. Not everyone's going to want an article of that length, but when people do want an article of that length, they spend a lot of time with it. They really dig into it, and that's what leads to that kind of time on site. When you do have longer articles and people actually want to read them and consume them. And again, that's not going to appeal to everyone. Some people would look at that and say, well, it's too long, you should only have short articles. Well, we have a lot of short articles too. I mean, we have articles that are, short news announcements. They're 350 words. That's all there is to write. We could write them 700. We could write them 1,000 words, but they'd be really, really wordy. But
Right.
there's no point to it, But that's the thing. You really have to think about different types of content on your site and what purpose each type of article is going to serve. If it's an in-depth interview, people want to dig in, and so you want to give them a lot. It has to be rich content. If it's a quick news item, they just want it fast.
And well, I'll say a big thank you to Martin that says that the interviews and the podcast, he really likes the content. So thanks, Martin. One quick question though, is there any one or two metrics that you really clue in more than others?
Well, we look at several things. So I'll show you actually a couple of things. Well, first of all, let me back up 1 second. So we have a lot of RSS subscribers, including that 5,000 to 10,000 who get the RSS feed through an email every day. Our regular email list, which is really more of our weekly newsletter that we put together. It's only about 17,000. The reason for that is, like a lot of small businesses, at one point we got really busy a few years ago and we let our newsletter go. Our list got very stale, and we had actually more than 17,000, and we ended up basically losing our entire list because we didn't send out any emails and it got stale.
Wow.
And that happens. And the moral of that story is, if you have an email list, it's like gold. Do not neglect it. Keep it up to date. Give people information that they want, because if you let it go for 18 months, then they don't want to read it, and everybody will unsubscribe, or when they do get something from you, they'll think it's spam.
So that's a really interesting point. So in the age of social media, where people get kind of excited about focusing on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or you pick it, email is still an incredibly important piece that you can't ignore.
It is. It's very important. And of course, we have a lot of social media accounts. We actually have several Twitter accounts, and for our smaller sites, which aren't really part of this, but we do manage social media accounts for those, we actually have separate social media accounts. So we'll have a separate Twitter feed for Biz Sugar, a separate Twitter feed for Tweak Your Biz, which is another of our sites. We have a separate Google Plus page for each of them. We have separate Facebook pages, and so on. Now, interestingly, we do a lot on Twitter, and it's probably one of the largest, if not the number one place where we get a lot of traffic from social media. But Facebook, we also get a lot of traffic from. And the interesting thing is, our Facebook page isn't mostly coming from there. It's from other people who share content. You can't really tell it from looking at the Facebook page, but it always surprises me when I look in our referrer statistics and I see Facebook right up there with Twitter,
Wow.
as number one, and it's because other people share the content on Facebook.
How about LinkedIn? How does that kind of fit into things?
We do have content on LinkedIn. I was recently approved to publish myself on LinkedIn, but I haven't actually done that yet, just from lack of time. And we do have people share on there. It's not among, I'd say it's probably kind of neck and neck with Google Plus for us. I know others have had real success with those platforms, and each platform has its own, its own personality, if you will. I think Google Plus tends to be very tech heavy. A lot of the tech early adopters are on there, and people who are really into that kind of content and really into that really do well, I think, on Google Plus. And we get traffic and we have interaction there, but it's not the top. LinkedIn, great for B2B. Just for us, I'm not sure it brings quite the same level of interest as the other platforms.
Hey, we have a quick question. It's a little off topic, but I want to get it in because this is Annika Madden, who she says this is her first webinar. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and thank you for making this your maiden voyage for webinars. That's kind of cool. But she has a question, and she's asking, do you recommend paid WordPress training, or are there enough free online sources to get started?
Well, I think it depends on how much time you have, Annika. I would say if you, the question I think also has to be broken down between, actually setting up and customizing your site versus actually using it. And I would say for setting up, customizing your site, keeping it up to date, I'd probably opt today for some kind of service. I think if you look around at a lot of the, let's say a lot of the domain registrars and hosting companies, many of them actually have like a WordPress plan where they'll do a very simple install of WordPress. They'll actually keep your WordPress installation up to date, and they'll help you install plugins. Sometimes certain services out there have a recommended list of plugins, and they'll help you install them. And they have templates that you can apply. And you can, of course, buy templates out there too. That's another place. That's another idea too. I would visit some of the template sites like Theme Forest, for example, is really good. We find really good stuff there at themeforest.com. But there are a lot of places where you can get, good themes for WordPress. As far as using WordPress, I'd probably, just recommend digging in and, using it yourself and learning the ropes yourself. There's nothing like being hands-on. And I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure that was very helpful. Thank you.
So I want to jump to another slide here and just talk about some of the things that we look at. So we look at the number of shares that we get, and in fact we have customized WordPress on the back end through our Chief Technology Officer, Leland McFarland, and we actually have like a panel in there where we can track the number of shares that we get by article, and we can actually track like our top shares for the week, the top shares for the month, top shares for the day, just as we also can track like the most popular articles in terms of the views for the day, the views for the week, the number of views for the month, the number of views for 90 days, that kind of thing. And we can see which articles are the most popular, and then we'll look at them and we'll ask ourselves why. Why was that one more popular than another? Sometimes it's easy to tell. Sometimes it isn't easy to tell. We're surprised. And, there are various reasons. Sometimes you have to dig into it a little bit. Sometimes it has a great title. It's an interesting topic. Sometimes even a really good image with it can be very popular, make it very popular. Other times, you have to dig in a little bit more. Maybe it's a subject that someone might otherwise consider a dry business subject. And then you kind of look around and you see, maybe it's a timely topic. Like we we've done tax articles, and if you're doing something in March on taxes, between March and April, that could be a really, really popular article, and then it may tail off.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you get an article that's shared with a large company's newsletter, or a really, really large publication shares it, and then you see suddenly all kinds of traffic to it. So you really, can use that kind of information if you track it and try to, reverse engineer it a little bit, go backwards and say what led to making this one more popular than another. And it'll tell you then what you should be spending your time creating content on. When we see something that works, we try to do more of it.
Mm.
When we see things that don't work, we don't do as much of it. And really, that's what you do need to do. And you also need to look at your Google Analytics in that regard very carefully. There's a part in Google Analytics you can go in. I forget what menu it's under. It might be under behavior now. They switch these things around. But if you go into that, it'll say content. And then you can drill down, and for a given period of time, you can see like how many page views, how many views were there, or how many unique visitors were there to a particular page on your site. And that can be very instructive. Look back for the last year and see, go back for a 1 year period and check and see in that 1 year period which were the top pages of your site.
Hey, real quick, Anita, how do you measure the impact? Are comments more appealing than retweets on Facebook, or how do you view the different kind of actions and their importance in building an audience?
I think you need all of them, and you have to look at them differently. I think you do need comments and engagement, and that's why we track it, and we hand moderate all of our comments. Every single one that goes on the site gets reviewed by at least one human being, and a lot of times I'm the one who does it because it's fairly easy. I can do it in the morning over morning coffee, and if it's not a good comment, if it looks like it's spam, it doesn't get in there. Now we have all kinds of automated filters too, but we also hand moderate. The automated filters only keep out so much, and you still have to go in and you have to have a human being. There's no, you can't shortcut that step. You really do need to look at it because things slip through. So we look at comments. We think that shows engagement. We look at social shares, but we don't look at that only. One of the things we look at, for example, is how many times an article was emailed. We have a little feature in the site where you can email an article to a friend, and that can be very surprising because sometimes an article will look like it's not very popular. And then you'll see all kinds of email activity on it. And the reason is often due to the nature of the content. Social media type of content gets shared a lot. You write something about Facebook, it's going to get shared a lot. You write something about Twitter, it gets shared a lot on social media. But if you write something about taxes, you write something about small business loans, or a topic like that, or training employees, people tend not to share that kind of thing socially as much on social media, but they do share it with their team members, they do share it with others, they email it to themselves so they have a record of it, and a lot of times you'll see all kinds of email activity on articles like that. And so we look at those too. We don't just look at like the socially popular, let's say snacking candy. We look at content. We look at kind of the hard business issues that really help people, but may not on the surface look like it's really popular content. You just can't tell looking at the face of an article like that. And we look at how many views something got. Lots of things get lots of views, and they don't get a lot of social media shares. But on the other hand, we have things where something might get 1,500 social media shares, and then you look at the views and you see, well, it got 3,000 views. So
Mm.
there were like half of them were shared, okay? But you might have a tax article that gets 30,000 views and it's got 200 shares. You
Wow.
know what I mean? Because it's just the nature of the content. You can't tell from social shares anything. And so my point on that is don't be fooled into thinking the only way to value content is how many social shares it gets. Yes, that's an important thing to look at. That's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. That's it. So it seems like there's so many different ways that you can kind of measure the impact of the content, and I guess there's no one way that will fit everybody. You really have to have a pretty good handle on your audience to understand the impact of the content.
That's right. You do. And and you really have to be on top of your numbers. That's why I say it's so important to, have analytics. In addition to Google Analytics, which we review religiously, we have some certain reports from Google Analytics that are emailed to us once a week. And then my executive team, when we get together on one of our executive team meetings, we will actually go over the reports. And we don't go over every line, but we will go through, for example, we have the report set up so that it shows us the pages that were most popular in the past week. So we'll look at the individual articles and we'll look at the top ones, what were most popular. Sometimes we look at the ones that were least popular. Why, And then we look at, um, we'll look at individual authors even. Not so much for our guest contributors. We have guest contributors, but we also have about 18 paid contributors on the site. And we look at what they're writing. These are the ones who get assignments from us. And so what we're really looking for there is not to grade them so much as we're looking at, the beat that they cover. We think of them as covering like a beat. If you think of a newspaper beat, like certain people cover technology, some people cover new product announcements, some cover software, some cover various things. And so we look at that and we try to determine, do we have a good mix of content? Are we covering the types of things people want to read? And if not, we shift and we adjust.
That brings up a couple of questions. How does a person know? Let's say they start off as kind of a one person band, and that's pretty much how you started off.
Mm-hmm.
When is it time to start bringing in some help? Some folks to help write content and really go from. You kind of look at it. Most people maybe look at it as a one person is a blog, but when you start bringing in contributors and paid versus other, it starts to get the feel of more of a kind of a publication. But when, especially in today's world, um, how does somebody make that determination when it's time to go to the next level?
Everybody grows in their own way. I decided that I was going to fund everything myself, and that's a very slow growth method. I'm happy I did it that way, but you could grow a lot faster if you had investors, you had outside money. And essentially, to bring other people in, you have to have some money coming in to pay people. And so that's really the issue. Do you have any money coming in? Do you have Google AdSense, for example, on your site? Do you have some affiliate programs where you're making money? And when you reach a point where you can pretty much rely on a certain amount of money coming in from that site, then you can step back and say, well, now I can afford to hire somebody and invest a little bit more in the site. And it's not just a question of hiring people to write, but you also have design and technology issues. You're going to have to spend something on those. And, there are always more needs for that than you have money, for most of us. I mean, we'd love to do a lot more with, the site, how it looks and, features and so on, but there's only so much money and you kind of grow as you're walking up steps. You think about it as stair stepping. You get a little bit money, you invest a little bit more, you get to another step. And then you get a little bit more money in, and you can invest a little bit more, and then you can walk up another step. And that's really what growth is kind of like. You're just taking small steps, you're getting a bit more money in, you're paying a bit more money out, and you grow. So I would say if you can reach the point where you're getting, like $1,000 a month in from your site, and you can pretty much count on at least that, and you can look at, bringing in someone part-time to help with some writing, and then try to get it to 2,000 a month, and and then grow from there. And that's really what you really want to do, to figure out how you bring people in.
And when you kind of think of it in today's environment, how difficult do you think it is today to build an audience up to the point where you're able to start doing, regular $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month? It's got to be a more challenging environment today than when you first got started. So, what maybe some of the things that you need to do today that maybe you didn't have to do when you first got started to kind of build that audience from the ground up, ground zero in 2014.
hmm So I think first thing that you definitely need is you're going to have to know something about search engines. And if you can't afford to hire a search engine professional to help you, you're going to have to invest in learning and and spending some time on that. So a lot of people don't know that I'm a moderator at the SEO book forums. It's a private paid forum, and have been doing that for 5 years. Now, that's not because I'm an SEO expert, not by any means. It's because I'm a business person, and I felt I could contribute business advice. But by also being over there and participating all the time, I'm participating multiple times a week, I learn. I read everything that's written over there, and I have learned from it. And so I have taught myself something about search engines and what to do, what not to do. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time to spend on that, and we have actually hired outside SEO help from time to time. But just having that knowledge and investing in myself was very important, because that's so important to growing traffic. And I would say, find some way that you can spend time to learn about search engine optimization, search marketing, what you can do there. Another thing is, to really build up your social platform. Social media does drive traffic to sites. It's actually harder today, I think, to drive traffic to a website from social media, just because there's so much out there now. So many people have caught on. It's not as easy as it was in 2009, so. But that's one thing. Build an email list. That's another thing. You want loyal readers. You can't just rely on search traffic. You can't just rely on social media. You have to have people who are loyal, and the emails remind them to come back to the site. That gives them reasons to come back. So those things are really very important, I think, to grow today. And you also have to have a really good niche too. There's so many sites out there. If you just start a general site, it's very, very hard to compete. You're much better off if you pick a fairly narrow niche that you can own, that nobody else is doing. You build your reputation up from that, and then later you can expand. If you look at, just look at how Mashable grew. Mashable started out as basically a social media site, everything about social media. Well, now they're into, entertainment and sports and everything else. And it's because they just gained such a name for themselves early on as being the place where anything that was happening with Twitter or whatever, you could find out about through them, that they were able to build on that.
Yeah, I actually remember talking to Pete. I can't remember what is his last name.
Cashmore.
Yeah, Pete Cashmore at Mashable back in 2005. and I had no idea. I saw something that he wrote that was really interesting. I reached out and I said I'd love to talk to you about something you wrote. I had no idea at the time the guy was all of like 19 or 20 years old, and Mashable was really just him at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
now 9 years later, it's a driving force on the web, and it's kind of awesome to see how one person has led to that, just as what you've done has led to where you are today. And so, do you think it's still possible for somebody to start from scratch in 2014 and reach those kind of levels, or what, or does it have to be a more of a realistic kind of number that people should be trying to reach in 2014, given all the competition, given all the content that's out there?
As a pure content site, I think it's challenging. I think it's more challenging today to do that because one of the things that you have are so many sites that publish so much. If you look at large sites like Mashable, like Huffington Post, and you look at the amount of content they're publishing on a daily basis, and imagine one or two or three people trying to match that. They're publishing 150 pieces of content new a day. It's very hard to do. I remember when Mashable, it was back in like 2008 or 2009, I spoke with their editor, and at that time they were publishing 25 articles a day. I can only imagine what they're publishing today. It's got to be 4 or 5 times that. And just pure volume of content helps a lot. I mean, it really does because it brings in more traffic. You have more chances for things to be seen on social media, more chances for things to be seen in Google News, in Google Search, other search engines. When people get to the site, there's more for them to jump around to, and over time that accumulates. And so you have to think about volume of content. If you're really getting into the content business, volume matters very much today. And so that I think is really important. But if you are like us and you want also high quality, I mean, we insist that a certain amount of the content be original news stories where we're literally calling people and doing interviews, or we're tracking down information, or at least doing an email interview. That takes a lot more to do. It takes more time. It takes a higher quality, as opposed to just slapping up 200 words with a video. So.
Hmm. You put up a slide here, and one of the things that stood out to me is under the A team, that last bullet point around finding freelancers and what kinds of services you use to find freelancers, and how can some of the folks out there uh, participating in the webinar tonight, how do they go about finding the right kind of people to contribute to what they're doing?
Yeah, so you can always ask for contributors to your site. Just understand that guest blogging kind of got overused here the last couple of years. We've really pulled back, and we actually took down a lot of the ways for people to find us to guest blog, simply because you get a lot of requests from people who are just trying to build links, and from fake people. They're not even real people. They'll give you fake names or stuff, and we don't want that. We want people who really are experts. We're always glad to hear from experts, and I'm always very happy, but we if someone goes through Brent and Brent Leary comes to me and introduces an expert, that's one thing. I'm all over that because I know Brent knows quality people. They're going to know what they're talking about. We're all over it. If we get a request over the transom and I do a quick search and I can't find much out about that person, it's going to be a little harder. It's a bigger challenge today. Wasn't always, but it is today, just because of guest blogging being a little abused. But we did guest blogging. We accepted guest bloggers back to 2004, when I used to have to basically beg and cajole people and explain to them why it was good for them to be published somewhere. It's very different today. Everybody's talking about guest blogging, but back then I really had to convince people. But what we found is it took a lot of time, so we really just started focusing on a core team of like freelance writers and people who we know have expertise in certain areas, and we ask them to create content in those areas. And then we get great content from them, people we trust. And
Right.
we have, we have a full-time editor. We do a lot of things. We focus a lot, as I said, down below in the process, because time is money. And when you're in the content business, whether you spend an hour on something or you spend 2 hours, it really eats, the 2 hours really eats into your profit margin. 1 hour, preserves your profit margin. So you really have to focus on that. We use a lot of tools. Just want to give you an idea. We use a Gmail account to get tips, just to keep from having people email us and our inboxes being disasters. One of the few people we know who actually uses my Yahoo still, but
Wow.
It's a great little RSS reader, and we actually have it set up with all kinds of feeds, and then our editorial team goes in the mornings, and we look through it, and we see, well, what's out there? And then we also even have a forwarding from our Gmail box into there, and we can scan the headlines of what came in the Gmail box to see what's there. We get individual emails, we get calls. I mean, we get Skype messages. People contact us all different kinds of ways with news, and we evaluate it. Our writers get contacted, and we look at Twitter. I mean, there's a lot on Twitter. And then we also have things like we might look at, like when it's earnings release season. We have certain companies that we follow that we know have small business news, and we might take a quick look and see if there's anything of interest there, or a big conference going on that we want to cover, whatever. And we have a morning editorial meeting, and we're all working from our homes all over, and we get together via chats and phone calls, and we use Google Apps, and we have like a little homegrown system called the Simple Author Manager system, and we put assignments in there based on what we found for our writers. Our writers log in, they see if they've got an assignment. It tells them, we'll give them like the proposed title, and we give a short description of the angle that we want them to do, and we might give them some additional information. Either there's a press release, we'd like you to email this person and do an interview of this person, or whatever it is. And, it really is like a news operation, just on a 21st century kind of scale. And I don't know how much time we have, but if we have just a moment, I'd like to just chat about some of the tools.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, great. So I actually partnered with someone to create a little tool called the Tweak Your Biz Title Generator tool. And I actually urge people to go out there, go to tweakyourbiz.com/tools. And what you will find is a fast, easy-to-use little application that will help you generate ideas for article headlines or article titles. And we use this all the time to come up with interesting article ideas. And we have found that 50% of the battle today with getting people to read stuff and visit your site is the headline. You've got to have great headlines. It is so, so important. So that's why we start with the headline. And that's why I invested in this tool. It even has like a little thesaurus built in. You're not going to use those titles exactly, but it will you'll get like 100 suggestions, and it'll trigger something that's similar. And we use it all the time just to give you an idea about how to create titles.
Is that a tool that's a free tool, or is that something that has a cost to it? Or?
Oh yeah, it's free, totally free. It's easy to use. It just takes a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes. If you have a topic, you just plug in a noun or a verb or a short phrase, in there, and then you click the button, and it'll generate some ideas for you.
And somebody just wanted to make sure they understood the URL. So that's Tweak Your Biz, just as it's kind of spelled, but it's all one word, .com, right? And then you said /tools.
That's right.
Okay, great.
Yes, and that should take you right there. and it's very quick and easy to use, and we use it internally, and we use it all the time. And like I said, you've got to get the titles right. It's really important. They can't be too long, can't be too short. You don't want the tail wagging the dog. You don't want to do SEO titles that, are great with keywords but are terrible for humans. They've got to be good for humans, but they should have, a searchable phrase in there somewhere too. And that's an art to come up with something like that. And we use a plugin called the Yoast SEO plugin, which I highly recommend. It does a lot of different things, but it will help you optimize your pages, your articles for SEO. But it's got a keyword suggestion tools built into it. It will give you a word count for your articles. It even has like the Flesch readability test built in. It'll tell you if your article's too hard to read, and you need to chop down sentences and things like that. Images, we're very particular on this, and I find a lot of smaller sites aren't as particular as they need to be. And that is, you cannot use images from elsewhere on the web, just freely. So we're very particular about having licensed images that we license from Shutterstock. We use images that the media says, about their products and so on, that they provide you to use. A few that are truly in the public domain. That means like a U.S. government image. That doesn't mean that it's on Flickr. It means that it's something that truly doesn't have a copyright. We use Copyscape Premium to check, like for our contributed articles. You pay a small fee. It's not very much, like $10 will buy you a lot, on that. And then you can put in the text of an article and check and see if it makes sure it's, not been lifted from anywhere else. And a good spell checker, and I finally need to add one other thing besides a good spell checker, and that is you need human beings to proofread too. And no matter how much we proofread, we always find little nits here and there. You can never proofread enough.
Believe me, I know. I definitely need proofreading for the stuff I write. So that's some great advice. I actually, if everybody looks into the questions area tab there, I just typed in the URLs for all the different tools that Anita just mentioned. So, and somebody add a question around, is this being recorded? The answer is yes, it's being recorded. And so you'll be able to watch this because Anita has gone through a ton of information. And we'll make the slides available for you too, so that you'll have the names and the recording, so you can look at it on this, the recording, or you could check out the slides. You'll have all the information. Anita, we're actually coming up on the top of the hour. I wanted to just make sure, is there anything else that you really thought you wanted to cover with the folks while we have them here?
If you have a dream, go for it, and have a clear idea what you want to do. And even if it isn't like what everybody else is doing, if you think it's useful for others out there and you have some evidence it's useful, go for it. And don't follow the crowd. Do your own thing.
Very nice. And Carletta Hurt, if you're still on the line, just type something in that question box. If you are, there is something kind of nice that I think you're going to like, but you have to still be on this call in order to get it. So are you still here? Just let me know. Type something real quick that says, yeah, I'm still here. Yep, she did. All right, great. Carletta, you are still here. You asked a really good question. Wanted to make sure you want to get all these tools. Just for being a part and hanging in the whole night, we're going to send you a free Amazon Fire TV device, streaming media device.
Ooh.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Hey.
Look, I wanted to keep that for myself, but I just can't do it. So.
Wahoo! Yes, that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah. So, Carletta, thank you for staying the whole night and for participating. And I want to make sure I get I can get your email address from the registration, and I'll follow up and make sure that I get enough information to ship that over to you. But thanks again, and thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. And a special thanks to my friend Anita Campbell for sharing all this great information. It's really great to see all of this and all the experience and the tips and the tricks that you share with everybody tonight has been great. So thank you once again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brent, and thank you, everyone. And feel free to contact me anytime, anyone.
That's not great. And so that will bring to end another TNT webinar. We'll be back in August. I'll have to let you know the date and time. I don't have it right nailed down. There's something, a special thing I'm trying to put together, but I will let you know. And I will also send out an email with links to the video and links to the slides so that you have all this information at your disposal. But once again, thanks for joining us. And hopefully I get this chance to see some of you on July 29th at the Atlanta Tribune Moving Your Business Forward event. I'm doing a session there on some things that we need to look at in the cloud. So we're going to be taking an interesting look at the cloud and what it has to offer small businesses, not just from a productivity standpoint, but from an actual business opportunity, business model creation standpoint. So I hope you're able to join us then as well. But for now, goodbye. Have a great evening, and we will see you next month at the next webinar. Thanks.